Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with Wolf Hoffmann of Accept to talk about their upcoming new album, Too Mean to Die, out January 15th on Nuclear Blast. How's it going?
It's going great. Well, as good as can be expected under these crazy circumstances. But in generally, I'm personally fine. Nobody in the band is sick. So far, so good as far as, what that's concerned.
Is releasing an album this early into 2021 the best way to get the year started, considering the disaster of 2020?
Hell yeah, it is. Make this shit year go away, and we'll start it off with some decent heavy metal. How about that?
I'm totally down for that. When I saw the date of January 15, I'm like, okay, we're getting the year started on the best note possible. Was that always the plan for you guys to have the album kick off the year?
Not really. I mean, these kind of things are almost out of our hands. I mean, we knew originally, I think the plan was originally to have it out in the fall, but then the label made that call. I mean, it's been sitting on the shelves now for a few months, so it's really their call, not ours, whenever they think it's the best time to release something. Because after all, they have to market it and sell it and whatnot. We just make the music, get it out there, and then they sell it or market it.
You guys must be itching to get this out to the fans and releasing this album so that everybody can experience what you guys have been working on.
Exactly. And they can all experience what you hopefully have experienced.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I'm one of the lucky ones. And I can't stop playing this album. It's so hooky. It's so catchy. I love this record. And I want to start perhaps in the beginning. Take me behind the process of creating an album like this. Like, what is the creative process that goes into place in order to get this album to the final product?
Really, the process has never really changed in all these years. I mean, back in the 80s, we did it with little cassette players and in the rehearsal room. But basically, it always starts with a basic musical idea. Sometimes it's just a riff or a melody that you have. And I collect those ideas for weeks and months at a time until I have a whole pile of half-finished songs or just sometimes riffs or finished songs, a whole collection, because I don't really want to ever think about anything too early. When you write a song and you immediately think, oh, this could be good for this and that, or this is no good, or this sounds very similar to something else, and I don't know, you judge yourself immediately. So I try not to do that initially. I try to just let it all out, whatever is in me, for a few weeks and months. And then the day comes when we all, sit down. And usually I do that with my producer, Andy Sneap. And we'll go through all the ideas and figure out what's worth keeping and what's worth recording and what's not,
You come into the studio once you narrow down to the songs that are going to be on the album, when you're actually ready to record and you come into the studio, do you have an idea of what you want the guitar sound to be like on the record? Or you allow yourself to be a little bit more organic and kind of play it in terms of what you get out of everybody once you're in that position of being in the studio and getting ready to record?
I think I have my sound, and I'm really not fiddling around with sounds at that point anymore. That sometimes I do when I do overdubs and try different guitars. If I think it needs a different flavor of some sort, or maybe an outro or an intro would be nice to try something unusual. But as far as my basic rhythm sounds, it's pretty much locked in at this point. So that never really ever changes. And the recording part is usually the easy part. It's just a matter of a day or two, and you've got the song down. And within a few days, you can track all the stuff. It's really writing the stuff that takes forever. If you know exactly what you're going for, it's just a matter of getting a really good take on something. It's when you have the feeling that the song isn't quite there yet, and you don't quite know what it is that it needs, and you start fiddling around and trying different parts. That takes time. That takes forever sometimes. And what I found is a good way. Sometimes it's good to just sort of put the song aside. If you run into a dead end, it's always a good idea to just leave it alone for a while and maybe look at it again next week. So the luxury of time in the songwriting process is very valuable. If you're in a time crunch and you have to write, I don't know, a whole album in 3 weeks, it's hell, because you don't have the luxury of letting it sleep, basically,
Yeah, let it simmer for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's sometimes the best way because I mean, sometimes you're so close to it that you don't see, the forest for the trees. You don't really know what's going on anymore. But you let it sit for a while, and it's totally obvious that something needs work or something is really good and it should stay. Sometimes you just need to step away.
Do you have some boards around you, people that you can reach out to when you're stuck in sometimes in a position like that where you feel like the song is missing something, but you can't put your finger on it? Is there people that you rely on to say, hey, what do you guys think? What is missing here?
I do, and a lot of times that's Andy Sneap, the producer. But on this album, also, we have a new bass player. His name's Martin Matnick, a German guy who happens to live where we all live in Nashville. And yeah, he actually contributed a few ideas or actually several songs to the album. And that was really good. Sometimes when you don't really have, you're just missing an idea. It's always good to ask somebody else for help, definitely.
When for those that are not lucky enough to have heard the album yet, how would you define the overall experience as far as the soundscape of this record is concerned?
The all dreaded question in the defining or describing my own music is almost impossible. I mean, except it has a certain style. I mean, we've been honing that for years and years, and I say the last 5 albums have all been similar style-wise and sound-wise. And that's really what we're going for. We're never really trying to reinvent the wheel or try to do fundamental changes. We're pretty much locked into who we are, the legacy of Accept, and we're trying to be, to honor that and really write these songs as if they could have been written 30 years ago, only they weren't. And they're written now and they're brand new, but they sound old school. So they sound somewhat familiar, and it's kind of what you're going for in a case like ours, because we have an audience, we have a following, we have all these records, so we don't want to surprise the fans with anything that's completely different.
It's funny that you say that, because that was one of the first things I felt listening to the album. The first words that came to my mind was, wow, this sounds old school, but still very modern. So it's like these two worlds are coming together, like the history of the band and the history of everything you guys have done, but still the album doesn't sound like it was recorded 40 years ago or 30 years ago. It sounds very modern. So it's a balance that you guys found on this record of these two worlds coming together.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad. And I think the last 5 albums, ever since we reunited in 2009, I think that all these last 5 albums are similar in that regard. And I think it's due to the fact that Andy Sneap came on board, because he's sort of a younger generation producer. He's super familiar with all these with technology, and he gets us really cool sounds. And the way that I write songs, and we've been writing songs for all these years, is somewhat old school. It's really a song-based approach. And I think those two worlds coming together works really well, like the old school way of songwriting with new technology and production. That seems to really be what people like, or what we like at the end of the day.
It sounds like, to use a basketball terminology, it sounds like he's the sixth man, the guy that comes off the bench and is the unsung hero in order to put the final touches together.
Maybe. I don't know shit about basketball, but that sounds about right to me.
Well, in terms of soccer or football, like they say in Europe, he would be the guy that comes off the bench. So he'd be the 12th player, basically.
Got it. Okay, right on. Yeah, he is that. I mean, we've been working together for so many years now and so many albums that it really feels like he's part of the family. Absolutely. Yeah.
A thing that I thought was interesting with this album was the overall structure of the record. When you look at the track listing, when you look at how the songs are put together, the album flows very well from song to song. I felt like you guys did a wonderful job alternating style tracks, but never really taking anything away from the experience that the record has. It always feels like it's taking you forward. Perhaps some songs faster than others, but it's always taking you forward. But then the second half of the album really threw me for a loop. You guys throw in a ballad in there, an instrumental track at the end of the record. How you see the overall structure and how you see that balance of the first, basically side A and side B of the album? Or do you see it that way at all?
I never even thought about all that. I just I put the set list together the way I would for a live show or something. You've got a opening song that you think is, you think backwards, really. That's the way I work it always. You know, which song is the opening track? And because Zombie Apocalypse has this sort of monster, you know,
It's like it has
Godzilla type.
power.
Yeah, well, it's got the intro, and you think about a live show. That's what you want at the very. It's odd to have a song in the middle of the set with an intro. To me, I mean, I think that belongs to the beginning. So we open it like a live show, and then the last song is sort of like the closing song, almost like a outro in a way, because it's instrumental and it kind of takes you away from everything. And so there's your two corners, and then you sort of build the ones in the middle the way they flow best in your mind. And you know, I basically build it like I would a live show in a way. But
Uh,
I'm glad if it flows well. Yeah.
no, I felt like it had a great fluidity. Like I said, you guys alternated songs very well. So it's not like you get into a 3 or even 4 songs that have the same sort of
Yeah.
style or feel. There's no 2 songs back to back that are similar. But
Yeah.
overall, the album has this soundscape that you just can't get away with it. It's just always moving you to the next song, into the next song, into the next song.
That's nice. I like to hear that. That's great. That's great. Tell me more.
you know, uh,
No, I think there's actually, I've heard that comment from other people as well, that they say there's a lot of nice variety on this album. It's not
yes.
just, you know, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, one after the other. There's definitely a different, even though it's all very in the style of Accept, there's a surprising, yeah, freshness and variety between songs.
And one of the
So
aspects of
that's
variety
good.
is also in the lyrics, because the lyrics are very different from track to track. There's different topics. You guys are touching on different subjects, some more modern, some less. How do you feel like the lyrics impact the overall playability of the album, or if it does it impact it at all in your mind?
I don't know. I mean, lyrics have always, in my mind, especially in metal, played a secondary role. If you think about it, a lot of people, because we play to a worldwide audience, and a lot of people don't even understand the lyrics. You know, some countries are better with English than others, and so I think it plays a different role to different people. But in general, you have to have lyrics. So we always try to have good lyrics, just because otherwise it's a waste. You know, why not talk about stuff that interests you or fans? And we always have a wide variety of topics, from social things, commentary, or sometimes historic. You know, we made an album called Stalingrad about this World War II battle. So there's always different elements of stuff that interests us, but it's always real. We never really try to write about witches and demons and fantasy kind of stuff. It's always sort of stuff that happens around us. In the case of like Zombie Apocalypse, it's really not about zombies. It's about people walking down the street with cell phones in their hands, looking like zombies, and about the fact that we're all pretty addicted to modern to you
Technology.
know, yeah, technology and digital media and all that. Or we have a song called Overnight Sensation, which
Yeah, I
is
was just
talking
going to ask
about
you.
the youth.
I was just going to ask you about
Yeah,
that
go
one,
ahead.
because I thought that track to me really resonated with me, and I think it's a song that I called a generational gap lyrical song, because I think depending on which generation you're from, you react to that song through a different lens. Like if you're from our
Yeah.
generation, you're going to look at it and you're like, yeah, there's a point here to be made, and this is completely true. But if you're from my son's generation, a younger generation, they're like, oh, these old guys, they don't know what they're talking about.
Old geezers, exactly. What do they know? Yeah, I know. But hey, we are who we are, and you just take notice. We're not really saying it's necessarily good or bad. We just look at things from our perspective, and write a song about it. And as a matter of fact, we have, even on the last album, we had a similar topic in one of the songs. It was called Analog Man, and that seems to be one of Mark's favorite topics, I guess, because he's definitely the technology bitcher in the band. I mean, he really doesn't like it at all. He's the analog man. So I mean, I think it's always good to write stuff about stuff that you really, that moves you, you know, whether in a good or bad way or whatever. But it feels real that way to me. You know, you don't have to like invent shit that doesn't exist. It's always like, yeah, we can relate to that.
I think it works well for the fans too, because then when you're performing the songs, it doesn't feel forced. It feels very organic. It feels very natural.
Yeah, and our fans love that song Analog Man, because so many people can really identify with that and say, yeah, I'm an analog man. The hell with all this. But at the same time, they're all on iPhones filming the show. You know what I mean? So it's all a bit of hypocrisy involved in all of that, But hey, it's, you can't take this stuff too seriously, I think.
No, yeah, that's true. That's very true. There's another song I want to ask you about, and that was Symphony of Pain. I really
Yeah.
thought that was a very interesting track musically. You guys went
Hmm.
into a lot of different places during that song, and it was a really interesting experience to go through it. What was the thought process behind that track?
That is something I personally have been doing for decades, really, going back all the way to a song called in the 80s called Metal Heart, where I used a piece of Beethoven's Four Elise and put it in a guitar solo. And it was so well received back then that I've been doing it on not every album, but very often, where I take a piece of classical, snippet of classical music and hide it in an accept song, if you will. And I did that again. It all started with the theme, or the title, Symphony of Pain. That's been kicking around in my head for a while because I liked it somehow. I thought it sounded metal. It sounded cool. It's a
Yeah,
symphony of pain. It's like, I don't know, the ultimate pain, I guess, or something. I don't know. I just
sounds
like the
very
way it
metal.
sounded.
It definitely
And
sounds
then
very.
yeah, it sounds metal. And then you have that word symphony in a song, and I immediately start thinking, well, that would be a song where it would be great to have some symphonic stuff. So, and the best known symphony of all times is probably Beethoven's Fifth Symphony with da 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 da. Everybody has heard that at one point or another. So I managed to find a place for that in the song. And then when I was that far, I found another place in the guitar solo. So there it was, a symphony of pain. And then we thought, well, lyrically, why don't we just write it about Mr. Beethoven himself, who had quite a painful life, had this struggle with deafness. So it all came full circle in the end, but it all started with just a simple word combination in a way.
As you look back at this record and the making of the record, working on the record, I'm sure every album comes with some difficulties. What were the difficult points for you as far as this album is concerned?
Good question. Excellent question. Nobody ever asked that. Huh.
Thank you.
Well, there were some songs that were easier than others. I can tell you that Zombie Apocalypse went through at least 15 revisions and different riffs and different songs. The song changed dramatically over time. It never could find certain parts, like the main chorus was always a challenge. But in the end, it all came together. And then other songs there, like Overnight Sensation, came together really easy. So you never quite know. And of course, there was the infamous logistic problem of the Corona lockdown, where the borders were closed, and our producer Andy Sneap, he couldn't come into the country to record the last batch of songs with us. So that was a little bit of a challenge, because we had to find a solution to have him present online through well, it wasn't quite like a Zoom, but it was sort of like that. So he was able to listen in from the UK what we were recording in Nashville. So it was a little bit unusual, but hey, we made it work.
I have to tell you this. This album is so hooky and so catchy. I'm walking around the house since I started listening to it, singing "Not My Problem."
Thank.
Like I'm just like everywhere I look and I see a problem, I say "Not my problem." I can't get the tracks, specifically that one. I can't get certain songs out of my head. Like the hooks and those choruses are just incredible. So
Thank you.
you're going to make my wife's Christmas perhaps not my problem, but perhaps her problem, because I'm going to be singing that throughout the whole holiday season. And the last question that I have for you is, with the line or with the song, "The best is yet to come." Is that the motto for Accept?
I hope so. It's my personal motto for sure. You know, I get asked a lot about like the 80s, and some people always want to dig around the past. In my case, they always ask me. Some people out there enjoy the past better than the present. It seems like they're living in the past almost. And I always think that's not for me. I'm a guy who constantly thinks ahead, and I honestly think the here and now is pretty damn cool, but the best is yet to come. And maybe the best accept song hasn't even been written yet, and the best show hasn't been played yet professionally. So I'm definitely always thinking ahead, and like honestly, the eternal optimist in that regard, you know, because I know a lot of people are the other way around. They think, oh, today everything sucks, and everything was great in the 80s or 20 years ago or whenever, and I can't understand that. So it reflects what I think as my life philosophy, if you want.
I think if you're always looking back, you run the risk of tripping, falling flat on your face, and not even really enjoying the moment that you're currently in. And I think that's a complete waste of time. What's in the past is there, and it allows you to learn
Yeah,
from it.
and you can't change it anyhow, you
You
know. And
can't do anything about it.
I even hate second guessing myself and thinking like I should have, I could have, and all that kind of stuff. Because people ask that all the time. What would you have done differently? And if you were doing this again, I don't care, man. It's over. It's done. We even have a song that's called "What's Done Is Done." When the bullet left the gun, can't take it back. You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. I think you always have to look forward and enjoy every single moment. And like I said, what's in the past is important because it molded who you are now. But that's about it.
Yeah,
That's just about it.
And right now, the present is pretty sucky with all that Corona stuff because we can't tour.
But To Mean to Die, it's out January 15th. I mean, you guys pretty much, everybody's going to come off of drinking in celebrating New Year's, and then they're faced with a brand new record. I mean, the party's just going to continue. You guys are extending the New Year's party beyond the regular days of New Year's celebration.
Absolutely. You know it.
Well, Wolf, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with the release on January 15th on Nuclear Blast, To Mean to Die, from Accept, the latest upcoming album. All the best to you and the guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Take care.